We're going to get started with the standard business. Welcome everyone to the Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care Committee meeting. For all participants, please mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking, and please don't put your phones on hold. The music would be distracting. For all participants, we ask that you please identify yourself when speaking. Committee members, please do not use the chat function as the audience cannot see it. If you are having problems with audio, you can go ahead and put something in there so that we can acknowledge it and try to get you help. With that said, I need to just go off script and say that it's already 93. It's going to be over 104 today. And please hydrate and give out water as much as you can to people. We want to make this a safe year. So Nikki, if you'll proceed with roll call. For those of us here in the meeting, please indicate you're here and your organization after Nikki calls your name.
Okay. Oops. Dawn Bogart.
Here, Dawn with Homeless Youth Connection. Good morning, everybody.
Melody Boyette.
Here from Phoenix, VA.
Vanessa Cartel.
Good morning. This is actually Anna Verdugo on behalf of
Oh, yeah.
Vanessa Cartel. Good
Thank
morning.
you, Anna. Nice to hear from you. Sylvia Chavez.
Here, Arizona Department of Education.
Allison Cook Davis.
Here from Morrison Institute.
Erin Cohen Haig.
Morning, here, Save the Family.
Jessica Cruz.
Good morning. I'm here. Housing Authority, Maricopa County.
Kathy Dinolfi.
Morning, Kathy Dinolfi and New Leaf.
Bernie Peralta for DC Ernest. Nicole Gibson.
Here, Yuma.
Anne Marie Johnston. Christina Lopez.
Here for Native American Connections.
Marcy McFarland.
Here from Home Inc.
Jim McPherson.
Morning, everyone. Jim McPherson, Phoenix Community Alliance Social and Housing Advancement Committee.
Matthew Kelly for Jennifer Page.
Matthew Kelly for Mercy Care. Sorry, I was on mute.
Gerardo Pena.
Hi, Gerardo Pena with Chicano for La Casa.
Aaron Rain.
Here, City of Mesa.
Tyler Rosensteel.
This is Ty Rosensteel with Solari.
Shayla Schuster. Sarah Sims. Laura Scott-Nicky.
Laura Scott-Nicky for the Salvation Army.
Michelle Stokes. Jocelyn Wilkinson. Co-chair Richard Cruz. It's hard to hear you, Richard. You're on mute.
That's part of the problem. Yeah.
Still can't hear you for some reason.
Richard, you having mic problems?
Switching mics. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can. You want to restate your name and organization?
Yes. Richard Cruz, Human Services Campus.
Co-chair Wendy Johnson.
Here, Justice Center, and we had a few people come in.
Okay. Did I miss anyone for roll call? Can you please state your name and organization?
Anne Marie Johnston with Community Bridges.
Jasani Goodman with Phoenix Rescue Mission.
Jocelyn Wilkinson, Arizona Department of Veteran Services.
Great. Anyone else?
Did we get Anna Verdugo standing in for Vanessa Carvel?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, I think that's it. Thank you. Back to you, Co-Chair Johnson.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is a call to the audience. Members of the public were given an opportunity to submit written comments relating to this meeting at our azmag.gov comment portal within 1 hour of the posted start time for the meeting. Or they can join the Zoom meeting by requesting the link from MAG staff or registering on the COC committee meeting event page. Boy, good access. If you're wishing to make a comment, please raise your hand in Zoom and you will be invited to unmute at that time. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. Question for the MAG staff, were any comments received or has anyone joined the call to offer comments?
No comments were received for this item or any other items on the agenda. And I don't think anyone has raised their hand unless I missed it.
I'm checking right now and I don't see any. Oh, I see one back here. Patricia Scott Lopez has raised her hand.
Hi, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Patricia Scott Lopez with Arizona Complete Health. I'm the housing SME there for Maricopa, Balance Estate, and Pima counties. So I'm trying to learn about all the COCs and make sure all of my providers know how to access housing and yeah, anything I can learn. So anyway, just sitting in on it, trying to figure things out. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. We're happy to have you in attendance.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on to the next agenda item. More business. The next item is approval of the May 11th, 22 meeting minutes. Does any member of the committee have questions or comments on the minutes? And we know that Richard encouraged us to make sure we read our packets before we signed on. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. I'm taking that as no questions or comments. Could I have a motion to approve the May 11th, 2022 Maricopa Regional Continuum of Care Committee meeting minutes?
Richard Cruz, so moved.
We have a motion from Richard Cruz and a second from anyone?
Jim McPherson, I will second that.
Thank you, Jim McPherson. Is there any discussion of the motion? No one has raised their hand or spoken out, so I will ask Nikki to proceed with the roll call vote. Once again, please indicate clearly how you vote, saying yay or nay after your name is called.
Excuse me, Don Bogart.
Yay.
Melody Boyette.
Yay.
Anna Verdugo for Vanessa Cartel.
Yay.
Sylvia Chavez.
Yay.
Allison Cook Haig. I'm sorry, Allison Cook Davis.
Close enough.
Can you indicate yay or nay? Okay,
Yay.
thank you.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's my fault. Aaron Cohen Haig.
Yay.
Jessica Cruz.
Yay.
Kathy Dinolfi.
Yay.
Bernie Peralta for DC Ernest. Nicole Gibson.
Yay.
Anne Marie Johnston.
Yay.
Christina Lopez.
Yay.
Marcy McFarland.
Yay.
Jim McPherson.
Aye.
Matthew Kelly for Jennifer Page.
Yay.
Gerardo Pena.
Yay.
Aaron Rain.
Yay.
Tyler Rosensteel.
Yay.
Chayla Schuster. Sarah Sims, Laura Scott Nicky,
Yay.
Michelle Stokes, Jocelyn Wilkinson,
Yay.
Co-Chair Richard Cruz,
Yay.
Co-Chair Wendy Johnson.
Yay.
Did I miss anyone? Okay, the motion has passed.
Thank you, everyone. Before we move on to the next section, we're getting some comments that there's some feedback happening, sound feedback. And so if you make sure you mute, and when you unmute, make sure that you're only using one mic. Our computers sometimes complicate that. So with that said, I will hand it over to Richard for our next agenda item.
Awesome. Thank you all. So the written updates were included in the packet, including a legislative update. As some of you may have heard, are one of those bills that we were in our feelings about. Has some life to it still. So do we have any questions about the update memo or discussions on the legislative update? Okay, so if there are no questions, we'll move on, but I would strongly suggest that everybody read their legislative update because bills are still alive and they are in the space of, how they get put into the budget. And so now is the time, if you got a lane to particular people, that you might want to use those things so that your voice can be heard. Silence is deafening, but silence is also violence. So please remember that. We'll move on to the next agenda item. What was that?
Question.
Okay.
Can you provide some clarification with regards to the language in the update that specifically states an emphasis remove an emphasis on criminalizing homelessness? That sounds a little vague to me. So does that mean that it's been removed altogether or that it still can be a criminalized behavior? I'm a little confused. Does that make, I'm looking at the language in the legislative update in the packet.
So Matt, my system went crazy in the middle of your
Sure, I'll just read you the statement. So that the statement says, which would, budgetary debate, SB 1581, which would create sanctioned campsites, has progressed with draft amendments that remove an emphasis on criminalizing homelessness. I don't really, does anybody know what that means?
It's been removed. I attend the policy meetings with Joan, and
Thank you.
it's been removed.
Okay, so a little more clear. Thank you.
Or
Appreciate it.
amended, yeah, sorry.
No, it's all right.
Also, I was talking to Representative Schwiebert yesterday, and she was saying the number went from 15 million down to 5 million. And so I'm like, I'm not even sure how much money is actually available to do what they want to do. Because 5 million statewide is like a pinprick. So yeah, there's just some interesting pieces that are in motion right now. Are there any other questions or comments about that? Okay, I'll move. But like I said, it's budget time. So now is when all kinds of things get added in an interesting way. So let us please be aware of what's currently taking place so that we can be in a space that allows for proactive advocacy as opposed to reactive service. We'll move to the next agenda item. And so So Stephanie Crum will provide a recap of the system flow dashboard.
All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Let me go ahead and get my screen shared here. All right. Can everybody see? Perfect. All right, let me just take you through the first page if you haven't seen this before. Just a quick reminder that there are some definitions on the first page. You got your general definitions, inflow, outflow. And then if you scroll down, we have our inclusion criteria. So what does it mean to be active on our list? What does it mean to not be active or excluded from our list? And then what are our positive exit destinations? So just some clarity there. Let's get into it. All right, so looking at our active overview, if you remember when we looked at last month, we were looking at a pretty significant spike. As we're coming into April, it's leveling off and even declining a little bit here. So any little stagnation or drop, I'm going to celebrate as a win, and I think we should as the community, but I still want to caution that we still are at our launching point for summertime. This is typically when we launch into those months. So I just want to caution there. Again, you're seeing in our subpopulations a little bit of a drop or stagnation, particularly in the BIPOC and the unsheltered community. I know that we have opened some shelters. There's 200 beds now available at St. Vincent de Paul. So I'm assuming that a lot of these openings are helping right now with these numbers, but still, again, just want to caution that we need to be mindful of the hot months coming up and that this is our typical launching point for higher numbers. Are there any questions on subpopulations or just the total number of active households before I move to another page? No, okay, looking good. Let's go over to our details. Give it a second to load here. All right, and again, you're just seeing a little bit of a decline here for March to April. Good thing, it's a good thing. We're still looking at our inflow. It's still slightly outpacing our outflow, but it's definitely converging more here in April, which is also a very good thing. As we look at our inflow detail, looks like the spikes are still pretty much being driven by new clients in return from inactive, but mostly new clients. And if you see our outflow detail here, we did have a jump here in unknown negative exit and just a little bit of a drop here in our positive housing destinations. But this convergence is very promising. Any questions on our flow details, inflow, outflow? Oh, yes, Wendy.
Thank you. I'm just wondering how this compares with prior years at this time. I know we have a lot of folks who are snowbirds who come here, you know, for the nice part of the year and then migrate north or west to get out of the heat. Does that compare year over year?
Yeah, I'm actually going to flip back to the active overview because it's just a little bit easier to see on that tab. So where we were at around this time last year was about households 3651. And then you see we went up to our high point in August. And then if you look back either farther than that, we get into 2020. This was our exact launching point in 2020 again for the summertime. So you can see that pattern of springtime launching into summertime. And then here we are again. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's why I caution, I just want to keep an eye on this because we're starting our launching point here higher than we ever have. So that's concerning. Yeah, any other questions on the flow? We'll just be keeping an eye on this and reporting every month and go from there.
Okay. So no other questions? Anybody have heartburn around anything? Well, like you should have heartburn around all of it, but like, Allison?
When does the new month's data like pop in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So on the 15th of the month is when we update the report. So we're just a little bit shy on this meeting of getting the May data, which is unfortunate, but we will, at our next meeting, we'll be reviewing the May data. So it comes out on the 15th.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Allison. Anybody else? Okay, I'm gonna move. Katie, so now Katie Gentry, Human Services Plan with MAG, provide an overview of the homeless trends report.
Jeremy, are you pulling this up?
Where'd Katie go?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, I see.
Jeremy, are you pulling this report up?
Yes, give me 1 second.
Thank you. So I wanted to give a quick overview. So not only do you all review the system flow dashboard on a monthly basis, but on a quarterly basis, we take that system flow dashboard and send all of that data over to MAG, and MAG works with Solari to put together this homelessness trends report. This comes out on a quarterly basis, so much later, January through March gets approved by the board in May, but this is for like a greater distribution besides people within the homeless service system. So when people are asking, like, what does this mean across our system? This is the report that we're turning to. Jeremy, if you want to zoom in a little bit on this top part, this top report is the total number of actively homeless households. It is accompanied by narrative. So as Stephanie just described, we did see that spike in March, and then it shows that narrative of we are higher than ever before. If you want to scroll down, Jeremy, the second half of this report is really looking at people who are new to system. So this is specifically looking at our folks who have not touched our system within the last 24 months. So that shows on the system flow dashboard on that fourth tab under inflow. This is going to be one of those lines, and these are just people who have never touched our system before. And as Stephanie mentioned, we are also seeing more people than ever experiencing homelessness for the first time. The last graph that you'll see on this page is our housing placements. This is placements specifically into homeless programs. And so this is not going to be all of our exits. This is just housing placements. So outside of our housing placements, we also have positive exits. So if Michelle goes and stays with her mom in Nebraska, that would be a positive exit. She's no longer in our system, but that's not necessarily considered a housing placement. The second page, if we want to flip to that, looks at specifically the demographics of heads of households. So this is not going to be everybody who is in that active. It is just going to be heads of households. So that is something to note. We look at gender, we look at race. There is narrative to say that this is not reflective of our overall system. And if we scroll down to the bottom of this page, you'll see also age groups, and then you'll see a comparison to Maricopa County census data. So this is showing how does our system compare to census data. One of the big notes that you will see is that difference in race data. So we have more people experiencing homelessness who are Black than census data, and then more who are American Indian, Alaska Native, but HMIS doesn't do a great job of capturing that multiple race data. So you do see that kind of discrepancy comparatively to census data. If you'll flip to the third page that you're looking at, this is going to jump into subpopulations. One of the changes from last report out to this report out is we did specifically pull out family data. So this is something that was a feedback on the system flow dashboard. Like we show families at 757, but we also included that narrative that there's in March, there was 2,890 people within that 757 families. So wanted to make sure you all saw that note. This continues to go through older adults, youth, veterans, and chronic homelessness. So this really just breaks down each of those subpopulations, has a narrative describing the increase specifically across all of these different subpopulations for the quarter. Finally, on the last page, page 4, you'll see our system performance measures across the top. So this is really looking at the system performance measures, our comparison to last quarter, and our comparison to the 2021 system performance measure, as well as our goal. I'm not going to dive into this super specifically because the next item on our agenda is specifically to look at these 6 system performance measures, and I'll be providing a PowerPoint on that, but wanted you all to know that this is part of this report. And then finally, on the bottom of this page, you'll see the number of people who are interacting with each of our different programs. So you'll see, Jeremy, if you want to scroll down, it might be my computer also that is slow today, that there's a number of clients served by the different intervention for each month. And then we also show a report of new projects. So we had 3 emergency shelter projects and 2 rapid rehousing projects that opened between January and March. Those 3 emergency shelter programs are going to be Respiro, operated by the Human Services Campus, iHelp in Northwest, and then hotel voucher program operated by CPLC down in Guadalupe. And then the 2 rapid rehousing programs that started operating are Mercy House and CVI rapid rehousing programs that were funded through the county. Happy to answer any questions. I know I just threw a ton of information. The last thing you should know is this is available on our website. If you go to azmag.gov/program/homelessness, on that main page, in the middle of the page, there's a tab for homeless trends report. And in that, you can click on it, see every single past report, as well as there are a couple graphs on that main page. And if you do subscribe to the newsletter, when we update this, we will send this report out when it gets updated to the website. I think that's all.
Katie, what questions do we have? Jim, go ahead.
Not really a question, but just thank you so much for pulling this information together. It's an amazing resource, and it's something that we all need to review and utilize.
Most certainly, most certainly. Sylvia, I see your hand.
Yeah, I also want to say thank you to being able to see families specifically for the populations that I serve. But my question is, do these special populations, do they change? I know you said you just added family, so will that be consistently shown quarterly, or if another request comes in, is there a chance one of these subpopulations will drop off?
Hey, Sylvia, thanks for that question. The subpopulations have stayed the same, like, consistently. The reason we decided to pull out families is families has been a focus. It's been on that active households, but we felt like it wasn't really the active households graph didn't really give the full story of families, which is why we just pulled them out separately. So there isn't an intention to change that back. We realize that this is probably the best way to capture that information moving forward, but definitely are open to feedback if you think there's a different way to display it. Essentially, we're trying to take a very interactive dashboard and make it a PDF, and this is kind of the solution we've come up with right now.
Thanks.
Ty Rosenstiel.
I wanted to thank Meg staff, particularly Katie and Maggie, for their work on getting this information onto the website. So I know that we've had this as a document that has been distributed to our committees and boards in the past, but I really want to applaud this homelessness programs page on the MAG website and how this information is displayed. And I was curious if there would be an opportunity to maybe have a demo of that homelessness programs website for this committee in the future.
Excuse me. Yes, Ty, definitely. We can put that on the agenda, and we can talk to the co-chairs regarding that during our agenda setting meeting.
Awesome. Laura, Scott, Nikki.
Thank you. I really appreciate this. I had a quick question. Since we don't always have 5 programs coming on at a time, I'm wondering if there's a way to reflect how many additional beds that's going to be for the community, and if we can see how year over year that has decreased the amount of homelessness and the inflow based on the number of beds coming on.
That's good stuff. Most certainly. I saw Katie taking notes there, so I'm doing the Zoom. Yes, that's something we can dive deeper into. Dawn Bogart. You're still muted, Dawn.
There we go. Thank you, Richard. Great job, Katie. I'm sure you guys aren't going to realize I'm going to ask, where are the youth numbers? Is there a reason that we can't report some of the ADE numbers on this report? Because it really doesn't give an accurate picture on all the youth that are homeless. It is only going through that one system. So just would like to have a discussion on that.
Katie, can you speak to that?
Can we, I will. Sylvia also raised her hand, and she raised it right when she said that. So I'm wondering if she has additional feedback, and then I can respond to both. Is that possible?
Yeah, no, I don't know if I had to change speakers, so I hope you guys can hear me. I think for the most part, we do know that our ADE numbers don't match with our HUD funded numbers. So that would be a piece, but these numbers allow me to see and share with our local liaisons and our groups where we need to be sending our youth. And by ADE numbers, our 18-year-old age group is really small, 18 to 21, because education only serves our K-12 can go up to 21. It's our younger numbers, those runaway homeless youth numbers. And I think that we'd be able to speak to that more during the youth committee on how to present those numbers. And then how do we amend or have a separate report similar to this at the state level? So adding more to the plate at ADE of utilizing what you guys have already done and maybe mirroring it with our numbers at ADE.
Thanks, Sylvia. I think to respond back to John, we are definitely looking into how to display ADE numbers in a way that, like, you're also combining like apples and oranges in so many ways. So we have different definitions, and how do we incorporate those different definitions together? And so definitely it's something that HMIS has been looking into with the system flow dashboard, and we've been looking into with this homelessness trends report, and finding a way to like make it understandable, especially because this report is going to a much broader audience and doesn't necessarily get into the weeds of kind of all of these different things. And so definitely am taking notes, and we will try to figure out how to incorporate and what that looks like moving forward.
Yeah, Katie, that was my main question, wondering if it is strictly the HUD definition, because I can tell you this year in particular, we've served over 500 kids, and usually 40 to 50% of those are 18 to 21. So, and I doubt that those are included in your numbers. So you've got an additional 250 kids.
So these numbers are pulled straight from HMIS and from the system flow dashboard. So this would be following the HUD definition. And so just like you said, like, I think, how do we combine these different definitions? I think on the veteran side, we're like also kind of going through this too, of like, how do we take two different definitions of veterans, who is a VA eligible person versus non-VA eligible, to give you kind of a different system reference. And so we are like working through that. And I would like to say this is the like clearest, straightest answer, and we can just like see down the road, but I don't think it is that clear and straightforward. And so as we like continue to kind of like navigate, we will definitely try to figure out what does that look like and how can we incorporate.
Awesome. Last call for any questions on this before I throw it back to Katie again, but this time to talk about the System Performance Measurements Quarterly Review. Okay, so Katie, go ahead and take us into the land of the System's Performance Measurements Quarterly Review.
Jeremy, can you pull up my presentation, please? Awesome, thank you. So we decided, or I guess we told you, and the chairs accepted, that we were going to revisit the system performance measures on a quarterly basis. So last quarter, we spent quite a bit of time talking about like, what do these system performance measures even mean? Last month, we gave you an overview and deep dive into just two of those measures, but wanted to go through all of them once again. So next slide, please. just gave you an overview. We're really just going to talk about all these different system performance measures. Happy to answer any questions as we go along. Next slide. So the first system performance measure that we're specifically talking about is people who are experiencing first-time homeless. So this is people who are new to our system. They haven't touched the Maricopa HMIS system within 24 months. So our system performance measure in 2021, which is going to be that federal year, so it goes from October 1 of 2020 through September 30th of 2021. Our report was 11,402. The goal is to decrease from there. Obviously, we've seen an explosion of homelessness. So in calendar year, quarter 4 of 2021, that we saw that increase. And then again, in quarter 1 of 2022, we saw that increase. We do anticipate, given the system flow dashboard, that we're going to continue to see an increase until we start to prevent that inflow coming in the front door. The next system performance measure that we are looking at is length of time homeless. So this is really looking at how many people are experiencing homelessness in emergency shelter, transitional housing, and safe havens. So this is the number of days that they are in each of that intervention. In 2021, it was 102 days was our system performance measure. Unfortunately, we are having challenges pulling this report on a quarterly basis, but we know that we are so far not trending in the right direction. And our goal is 97. So we really need to reduce those people who are long-term stayers in some of our emergency shelters and transitional housing to be able to bring this number down. The third measure that you're going to look at is returns within 1 year. So these are people who are returning to homelessness after entering a permanent destination. So they may have entered a permanent destination that is not within our system, but it could also be like rapid rehousing destination. So in 2021, our system performance measure was 18%. We are seeing the right trend. So quarter 4 was 18%, quarter 1 was 16%. So we want to continue to move in that direction with our goal being 13%. So we are trending in the right direction. Hopefully we can continue to do that. Thirdly, we are looking at jobs and income growth. So this is looking at how many people specifically within COC projects are increasing their income or increasing their either non-employment income or employment income. So new jobs, or they are increasing, more people are getting access to that Social Security, disability, or things like that. We've stayed stagnant. So not necessarily doing anything wrong, but not necessarily doing amazing things that are changing this. And so we need to create some additional strategies. There is an employment listening session happening at the end of the month, being led by my colleague Haley Owens, to specifically talk about how do we increase this and how do we improve this over time. So if you're interested in that, reach out to her and she would be happy to get you connected. Next, you'll see successful exits to permanent housing destinations. So these are the number of people who are in emergency shelter, transitional housing, safe haven, or rapid rehousing getting exited into a permanent housing destination. So we are keeping them longer term. You'll see that from 2021, we have seen a decline in this. So obviously the housing market has a little bit to do with this. We're having a really challenging housing market, but our goal is 45%. And so need to kind of employ some of those creative problem solving strategies, threshold being one of them, but some of those other ones also to be able to change the direction that we are headed. Finally, you will see increasing successful permanent housing exits to permanent housing or retaining that housing. So this is people who are leaving permanent housing. They may be in a permanent supportive housing voucher from us and either stay in that voucher or they're moving on to a different permanent housing intervention. Maybe that is a housing choice voucher or project-based voucher through a local jurisdiction, or maybe permanently renting without a subsidy. So you can see that in 2021, we're doing quite well in this. We have a 97% success rate, and we've already hit our goal. So we just need to stay at that goal of 98% in quarter 1 of 2022. Happy to answer any questions. I know I kind of went through all of that, and that's a lot of information to throw at you, but I'm hoping you all are getting more comfortable with these as time goes on.
What are the questions, comments, concerns, heartburn? What are people stewing around? Like, marinating in?
Dawn has her hand up.
No, Dawn's hand was still up from the last time. That's all. You're all good. Allison Davis.
Allison.
Hi, Allison Cook Davis from Morrison Institute. I just have a quick question, and I hope this isn't like a very obvious answer, but increasing successful permanent housing exits to permanent housing is sort of confusing to me. Sort of, if you're increasing successful permanent housing exits to permanent housing, I don't know exactly what that means.
Not a dumb question. Hi, Allison. So the permanent housing is permanent supportive housing is our intervention. So COC funded permanent supportive housing to different permanent housing. So this may be that they retained their permanent supportive housing voucher, or they moved to a different permanent housing that is not funded by the COC. So examples would that be like a Section 8 voucher through a City of Phoenix, or they took on their rent and we no longer need to subsidize their rent. That would be permanent housing. Or there's even a situation potentially where like they moved on to long-term care facilities or something that was not in our voucher where we're still subsidizing that rent. Does that clear that up?
That helps. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Other questions that we have? Okay, so we're going to move. As you all know, each year the Maricopa County Continuum of Care completes the point in time count as part of the requirement from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD. The point in time count includes a count of people experiencing unsheltered homelessness as well as a sheltered count. The full report provides a breakdown of total population demographics, subpopulations, and populations by jurisdiction. Nikki Stevens of MAG is going to provide an overview of the full report. Nikki, the floor is yours.
Hi, Jeremy. Can you please share my present? Oh, you're already on it. Thank you, buddy. Okay, so next slide, please. I think Richard already gave this little tidbit. You know, we are required by HUD to do the point in time count every year, and to, you know, this information obviously is extremely important to the funds that we receive through municipalities. So it's important to identify the subpopulations, you know, veterans, families, chronically homeless individuals, and youth. Next slide, please. So this is the overall point in time count for 2022. As you can see, in 2021, there was no point in time count due to the COVID pandemic. And for 2022, we had 9,026 people total experiencing homelessness, with 3,997 of those folks that were counted in a shelter environment, and 5,029 were counted as unsheltered. Next slide, please. And as you can see here, there has been an increase overall of about 34% 34% of unsheltered count, and 22% overall, both sheltered and unsheltered. In the shelter count, we saw an increase of about 9%. As you know, the unsheltered count increased at a higher rate than the sheltered and overall point time count. Next slide, please. So one of the areas in subpopulations that we look at, obviously, are families experiencing homelessness. And I want to give a shout out to UMOM for their work with us to identify those priority 1 and priority 2 families. That assisted us in really getting that family data. We know historically it's really difficult to capture families experiencing homelessness during the point in time count. And we know this doesn't accurately reflect all of the families that are experiencing homelessness, as you guys saw in the conversation earlier between Dawn and Sylvia. So there are a lot of families that go uncounted, but UMOM did a really great job of making sure that we are getting those families counted, because I know historically it's been a challenge. So in the 2022 point in time count, 550 families were identified as experiencing homelessness, with a total of 1,946 people within those families. And from 2016 to 2022, the number of families has decreased by 12% according to the point in time count. Next slide, please. So the next slide is our chronically homeless population. The number of people who meet the chronically homeless definition has significantly increased over the years. From 2016 to 2022, the total number of chronically homeless individuals has increased by 73%. And just to define chronically homeless, that's a person who lives in a place not meant for human habitation, has a disability, and has experienced homelessness for one continuous year or 4 more episodes in the last 3 years. Next slide, please. So this is our veteran population. The number of veterans experiencing homelessness has decreased 15% since 2020, after increasing in 2019 and 2020. The 2022 point in time count showed a decrease in the number of veterans experiencing sheltered and unsheltered homelessness on the night of the count. It is also important to note that the veteran status is self-reported in the point in time count, and that leads us, to some of the other things that I'll talk about later about the benefits and limitations of the point in time count. Next slide, please. So unaccompanied youth, this is considered a very vulnerable population. The number has increased in the past few years. Youth are also a very challenging subpopulation to identify during the point in time count because they couch surf, they're doubled up, hotel hop, hanging out with friends, and it's really challenging to get them counted during the point in time count. But I want to give another shout out to Home Base, who did a barbecue that morning and that day and really did a really great job in getting that number, because I think it's so important that we're able to report that information back to HUD. To account for this, the youth service providers have participated in planning and the survey process over the years to better understand the subpopulation and to capture that number of unaccompanied youth. Next slide, please. So the largest group from the point in time count is adults ages 25 and up, which accounted for about 78% of the total point in time count. Children 0 to 17 make up about 14% of the population, while youth 18 to 24 make up only about 8% of the entire count. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Go back, Jeremy. Sorry, I forgot to get the gender. Okay, so for the gender, the point in time count, 65% of the population experienced homelessness identified as male, 35% identified as female, and less than 1% identified as either transgender, gender non-conforming, or questioning. Next slide, please. Okay, in this slide, we have a breakdown of race. And as Katie alluded to earlier, we note that the white population through the census in Maricopa County is 60%, and the Black population is at 6%, Asian population is 5%, American Indian population and Alaskan Native is 2%, and Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander is about 1%, and multiple races is about 14%. And as you look at the breakdown, you can see that there is a disproportionate number of people of color who experience homelessness in compared to their actual census in our community. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a comparison of gender, race, ethnicity, and age within the sheltered and unsheltered populations. And I don't want to read off all of this to you. As you can see, there's, again, a disproportionate amount of people of color that experience homelessness in comparison to their actual population according to the census. And you can see that broken down in each of the areas of sheltered and unsheltered populations. Next slide, please. So this is the additional populations. Again, this is all self-reported. And in 2022, 1,022 people stated they had a mental illness. 1,104 said they had a substance use of either alcohol or drugs. 135 identified having HIV or AIDS. and 470 identified as domestic violence survivors. Next slide, please. So additional survey questions that we did add to the point in time count that is not required by the questions that are not required by HUD was your homelessness caused by the COVID-19 pandemic? And 302 people reported that yes, it was caused, excuse me, did cause their homelessness. And we also added the pet question because we know that's sometimes a barrier for people to access shelter. So 352 pets were identified during the point in time count. Next slide, please. I know there was a request for seniors. So what we could pool was seniors or older adults that were unsheltered. We did not get a good count of the sheltered seniors. We only what was reported was 25 and plus category. The two older adult categories from the unsheltered point in time count were 55 to 61 and 62 plus. So as you can see, 3,551 adults between the ages of 25 to 54, and older adults 55 plus were at 878, and 55 to 61, 649, and 62 plus were 229. Next slide, please. So how we use this data is to obviously galvanize local and regional responses to accelerate progress on addressing homelessness in our communities, support planning and performance management for each community in the region, and obviously the nation as a whole as required by HUD. And also it's a great opportunity for outreach teams to connect people experiencing homelessness with housing and other services while they are out conducting the count. Next slide, please. So as I alluded to earlier, there are benefits and limitations to the point in time count. The benefits obviously is it brings dollars into our community from HUD. It provides us useful data for planning purposes. It analyzes the trends of homelessness throughout the years. And the limitations, I think we all agree are multiple, but some of those are, it's difficult to measure family and youth homelessness. Data is self-reported and it doesn't always give a full picture of what's happening in our community. We do have better ways to get that information as to what Katie had shared earlier. Next slide, please. I also want to thank all the point in time count coordinators and volunteers. We had over 500 volunteers during the point in time count, and this is during the Omicron surge. So I just applaud all of the coordinators and everybody that went out there that morning and assisted us in getting a count during a really challenging and difficult season. Next slide, please. And this is my contact information if you have any questions in the future or if I can assist in any way. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Now I know everyone has questions, so comments. So please, let's line up, raise our hands. What is it that you saw that you want to dig deeper into? I'm gonna guess that the heat's getting people today. So if not, thank you, Nikki. Thank you for that robust presentation. My hope is that people email you with all kinds of questions because there were lots of interesting things in that pit count that I hope people kind of dig into or bite into or want to know more about. We're now going to go back to Katie Gentry from MAG to provide a review of the Continuum of Care Charter.
Thanks, Jeremy. So quick overview of what is our charter and how does this all relate to you all. Each year, the Continuum of Care Board is responsible for updating the charter and reviewing the charter. And so want to hear feedback from you all. This is your section of the charter. If you have any comments or feedback to them on your section of the charter, they will be reviewing it during the month of July with a work group and bringing formal changes is back to the board at the end of July. And so wanted to spend a few minutes kind of walking through what is in your charter and then gathering any feedback from you all, especially as we go into that session with the board. To give you a brief overview, this first section is really like, what is your relationship to the COC? What is your broad goals within the continuum of care? So really just gives an overview of what is the committee and then what your 4 main goals are. Below that, you will see what it is that you all do. So you meet on a monthly basis. We do post the agenda 72 hours in advance in compliance with public meeting law. You have to have at least, you fall under open meeting law, so you have to have a number more than your majority in order to have a meeting. And then we post your minutes. So this is very dry and boring language, but does have to be updated on a regular basis. Jeremy, if you want to go to page 2. This next section really talks about your participation. So if you miss 2 or more meetings in a row, we will reach out to you and say, do you intend to keep your seat at 3 meetings? The committee does have an option to remove you from the committee. And then we do ask you to serve on at least 1 ad hoc committee, subcommittee, and or work group. So throughout the year, whether that is the community best practices work group that we talked about last month, or the membership work group come fall. There are a number of work groups, and we just ask you to participate in one of those, or have a member of your staff participate in another subcommittee, or you can as well. I know a number of you do. And then lastly, we ask you to sign a code of conduct. This is really just saying, like, we don't have any conflicts of interest that you all have. For example, if you were choosing whether or not MAG could do something, I should restrain and not vote on that, because that would be a conflict of interest for me. This next section really looks at membership. So this is, it really defines out who can be a member of the committee and who all do we want at the table. You all have quite a long list because you all make up very diverse perspectives, and we really want to make sure that we continue to have that. Jeremy, if you want to go to the next page. And then lastly, part of this membership is looking at last year, the board really wanted to ensure that we had geographic representation, racial diversity, and underrepresentation. So this falls across all of our committees. These 3 things come into consideration when membership does occur, and we bring we ask new members to fill this out, and it does weigh into membership decisions. The rest of this goes into your term limits. What does that look like? You have a 3-year term limit unless you are a COC funded agency, and then you have a term until your COC funding stops. We do, this last paragraph talks about how, okay, let me rewind. This second to last paragraph talks about the proxy. So you're allowed a proxy. We do ask for you to let us know when your proxy is going to take your place for a meeting. And then it does say that if you are a COC funded agency, we ask for your executive director or CEO to appoint a representative if they are not going to fill that seat. This last paragraph talks about your 3-year term limit and how we do membership recruitment. So each year in October, we set a formal request. It is included on the website. It is mailed out to everybody, sent out a notification that there are vacancies. And then people are able to apply for that membership opening. And at that point, you all would form a membership work group to select your new members moving on into the committee. Last year, you had 10 new people come on. And so that was one of our larger selections over the past few years. You will go to the next page. This is also included in your packet. So I know I'm kind of, please stop me at any time. Just talked about how you will have a membership review work group. This will be a number of you all who volunteer to be part of this. We do state that at any point, if you all fall below and are not in accordance with HUD regulations, that you would have membership, you would open membership at that time. So this doesn't fall into a certain number of members, but rather that you still need to meet HUD requirements. And then finally, you have 2 committee co-chairs. Ideally, they are flip-flopping, so they are not going off at the same time or coming on at the same time, so that they can learn from each other. If at any point we do have a vacancy, then we would request a letter to fill that vacancy at that time, and then it will be voted on by the committee as a whole. Any questions about all of that before I get into roles and responsibilities? All right, I'm hearing echoes. So the last big part of your charter is your roles and responsibilities. So these were refined last year when the board reviewed, giving you all a little bit more responsibility in accordance with some of the governance work that we had been doing. So each year you will annually revise the community best practices and provide input on their use to the board for the board to vote on. You'll be coordinating the housing and service system, the regional action plan to end homelessness. So that became Pathways Home this year. You all gave feedback to that. Number 4, supporting the HMIS lead to encourage community providers to participate in HMIS and to implement data quality and data privacy plans. Number 5, supporting transparency. So encouraging the data privacy plan to be used, and not only encouraging that use to share data with external sources and how that data is going to be used for community research. Number 6, the system performance measures and provide feedback to providers. So we've been reviewing those on a quarterly basis with the hope that we would be able to start really digging into provider specific system performance measures and not just looking at them as a whole, and using those best practices to provide input and increase performance. Any questions on that before we go to the last few on the next page? All right, next page. Review and provide feedback to the data subcommittee. You all review the system flow dashboard on a monthly basis. Review, revise, and recommend changes on COC performance scorecard. So that NOVO scorecard came to you in April for feedback, and we asked a number of you to participate in that very detailed review work group. Serve as a resource to the collaborative applicant when completing the annual application to HUD. So each year with the NOFO, we do reach out to a number of you and really talk about what does that look like and what are you all doing within your programs to better our NOFO notice of funding opportunity application. Number 10, you've all reviewed the ESG and COC standards earlier this year in March. And then finally, these last 2 cross over all of our committees, creating ad hoc working groups. So if you all have something you need to get done or want to dive further into, you have the ability to create ad hoc working groups and really take the time to dive into those. And then supporting communication across working group subcommittees and all COC entities so that we can continue to do the work that we are doing. Any thoughts, feedback, changes? I need to digest this and send me an email is okay also.
I have a question, Katie. Is there a possibility for like multiple onboarding periods over the course of the year? Like, could that be something that happens? And the reason I ask that is just because, like I said, we onboard people once a year. And then like, it does not provide the level of fluidity to address certain issues as they emerge over the course of the year. And so like, I just wonder, is there an opportunity in the future to think about whether there's like a semi-annual piece, so it's not just the one time at the beginning of the year or in October?
I will pause. I will say it's definitely a possibility. However, one thing that we are mindful of is staffing capacity. So there is 6 different lateral committees. And so one of the things that we are trying to do is kind of sort those throughout the year. So like board recruitment is in August, committee in October, coordinated entry in January, data subcommittee in March, lived experience in May. So it ends up being that we have multiple recruitments out, like at the same time if we do go to a semi-annual basis, but we can definitely talk about that as a staff if that is something you all are interested in changing.
Katie, this is Wendy Johnson at Justice Center. I think for me, the lack of clarity on the difference between the roles, whether we're representing a HUD funded agency or a community agency or a community individual, because we say if we lose a community member, the seat remains open. And that, I think, is something we should address, because if we're trying to keep the 4 areas that we list above, the geographic, the underserved, blah, blah, down that list, then we are further underrepresenting those groups by not trying to fill that community seat.
I agree with you, Wendy.
Richard, could you hear me?
Yeah, I heard you. I agree with you, Wendy.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think we need to increase access.
So sorry, Richard. I have you on a slight delay.
I see, but yeah, I just think we need to increase access, and I think there's power in that access, as well as it's like Wendy and I were elected by one board, and then we serve another board in that sense, because like the people that are onboarded aren't a part of the vote until like the next year. And so I just like that even in and of itself, from a power dynamic, I think can also get into a hairy situation, because like the people that you're actually serving alongside, or I mean, like it'd be different if onboarding occurred for the vote, and then that's a whole other conversation. But I just like it's a thing when the chairs are elected by outgoing board members or outgoing committee members, right? And then we're gonna serve a whole new set, not a whole new set, but you know, like you said, we had 10 new committee members this year, and so having 10 new committee members, that's a third of like who's on right now in terms of like those, like that form representation. So
I will say typically your co-chair does get elected after your new members come on. It was also weird last year because your co-chair was somebody who was leaving. So you just had like a huge weird flow. We didn't have a co-chair at that point to even have an election. Like we just had a lot of weird things happening last year also. So typically your co-chair would get elected in January once your new members start. But I think that is potentially a separate issue than access to committee membership. I also want you all to keep in mind that you are already a committee of 25, and you do need to be mindful of numbers.
Are there any other questions before we move? Hearing none, thank you so much for that, Katie, and for taking those questions from us right there at the end. I will pass it back to Wendy now.
This is Matt. I have a question. I'm just looking at the roles and responsibilities for the committee. Is there, how does work necessarily come to the committee? Because a lot of what I'm seeing here is providing feedback and providing guidance. Does the board ever direct the committee to do certain things? Does that come down? Is that part of your guys' roles and responsibilities to kind of do some of that work? Or I apologize, maybe I'm asking a question that's already been addressed in the past, but.
I can take that question. It sounds like nobody's jumping in. So some of this work, like the community best practices, the ESG, COC, and written standards were directed by the board. Those used to be responsibilities of the board, and that those responsibilities shifted to the committee to give feedback to the board to give final approval. I also think that some of the work in here is coming through other committees other subcommittees to the committee, because it is feedback coming through that direction, because it does impact providers specifically. Matt, most of your changes come through coordinated entry and then impact committee, so that comes here. But the other thing I would say is that the board strategic plan is giving more responsibility to the committee moving forward. And so that some of that will fall onto the committee and needs to be incorporated into the roles and responsibilities. So we will thank you for that feedback.
No, I was just wondering, because I figured there might be some of that flow or directive noted in the roles and responsibilities. That's all. Thank you.
Wendy, you're muted.
That unmute button. Okay. Thank you, Matthew. I appreciate the question as well. This is a strong encouragement, a guilt level appeal that you register for the data walk to attend on June 16th. It is super important that we understand the data we work with, that we explore areas where we can improve performance, because some of the things that Stephanie and Katie presented today on data, we need to understand what goes in there, because if we need to look at how we're doing certain things, this is the only way it'll be exposed. And by exposed, I don't mean like cameras and television stations. I mean revealed like magic. Really important. I can't emphasize how excited I am and how annoying I will be that day, because I'm so excited. Any questions about the data walk? Okay, crickets, that's wonderful.
Hi, Wendy, it's Sylvia.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So sorry, I will be not available for the data walk. However, I have asked my director, who's just returning from vacation, if she could attend. Would that be possible? And if not, who do I send the data? What data I can send to?
Richard?
So she can attend. You should send your data to Katie.
Okay.
But she should also attend.
I will also clarify that this data walk is open to everybody, not just committee members. So it is a free for all invite. Registration is through Zoom, but it says you can attend in person. We have a registration page just so we know what to expect.
Ms. Cruz has her hand raised.
Yes, I do. The registration page, I'm going to, I just realized that. Never mind. You answered my question. That was it. I was just going to ask where I can find that, but I forgot where I can find it. Thank you.
I'm in awe of how much all of us have to remember to just get through the day. And we so don't feel bad about asking that. Not related, are there any committee members who have any action or discussion items for future meetings? I want to compliment those of you that have sent in information. And this is what we're working on, how to, the data walk, instead of spending a COC meeting, we're doing it separately so that we can get the information and discuss it without having to worry about time constraints related to other items on the agenda. We have several things planned, quarterly events coming up, and we hope that that will address some of the items. But does anybody have anything they want to put before the board? Or the committee, sorry.
Hi, this is Jim McPherson. I don't know if it's to put before the committee, but under the objective of fostering communications and collaboration, a couple things came up this past week I thought may be of interest to folks. One, I ran into a board member of the Housing Pride Board. That's the Phoenix Residential Investment Development Effort. And the board members mentioned they have Section 8 vouchers that they're trying to disseminate and don't know about get rid of, but just get out. And so he was hoping that I could and others could pass along that information of that need. And then secondly, the City of Phoenix has just announced their bond obligation committee members. And for those of you who don't know what the bond is, it's the last one was in 2006, where significant funding was put before the voters of Phoenix to do certain things that the city desired to have done. And this is like public safety and economic development, parks and recreation, all those sorts of things. And this year it includes housing, human services, and homelessness. And Dee Devine is the chair of that subcommittee. And they're just now working or about to work on what the roles and responsibilities are in preparation for ideas for projects and initiatives and funding through the City of Phoenix for these various areas that to put forth to the voters in November of 2023. So I'm just thinking, everyone, put on your thinking caps and some of you may already be on that committee or that subcommittee or others that are related, to think about what our needs are that we wish to communicate to this committee so that they can be funded. I could send along the board membership list to whoever, and you can disseminate it for future use.
Thank you, Jim.
Yes, thank you so much. I had no idea, so thank you. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who was in the French clueless, so thank you. Any other announcements or questions for future discussion? I want to be respectful of our time. Okay, moving along. The next agenda item is comments from the committee. Is there any on the committee that has, and Jim, thanks for leading with this, any announcements or events they would like to highlight? Okay, gratuitous self-promotion, warning sign. Justice Center is addressing the rapid growth of seniors entering homelessness by focusing on homelessness prevention, in addition with remediating those in homelessness. We've opened a new location called the Boy, I Need Help with Marketing name of Justice Senior Resource Center. And we're on the corner of 55th Drive and Glendale in Glendale. And what our goal there is to help people who are unfortunately aging into poverty find resources, benefits, enroll them in our care program where we bring them groceries every week, medical support, things like that. And so we will be doing an open house the 26th of June, and you're all welcome to come by and see what we're doing and grab a sandwich and a glass of lemonade and just check in to see if there's something from your agency that could be done in this facility as well. We also have been contracted with AARP to do digital literacy for 50 and older, and we'll be holding free computer classes and information on computer safety. We have a certain amount of people we need to do this for 50 and older. However, I think this would be applicable for anyone who's not digitally literate, and we can talk about how to help. We are authorized to train trainers. So the address is 5533 West Glendale. We're right on the corner of 55th Avenue and Glendale. Thank you for asking. Somebody asked. So that's my announcement, and that's where I'm working today, and it's really awesome. Anyone else want to be gratuitously self-promoting? I encourage it. Okay, gosh, I'm kind of bummed. I really hope that you guys would make me look bad.
I can be gratuitously self-promoting as well. Wendy, Allison Cook Davis from Morrison Institute. I wanted to note, it actually was in sort of the MAG newsletter announcements, but Morrison Institute just released a brief that's specific to Maricopa County and looking at housing insecurity in the county. And so I just want to encourage people to check it out. It's on our website. We're doing a study that's looking at housing affordability and insecurity across 6 counties, and Maricopa is one of them. But I just wanted to point it out, like for this group, that the Maricopa County brief is now available online.
Wonderful. All right, thank you everyone for your time today. Richard, do you have anything else? All right, I'm getting a no. So Nikki, I'm handing it back to you.
I think that you can adjourn the meeting now, Co-Chair Johnson.
Well, the meeting is now officially adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.